Hello and a warm welcome. You joined us on Market Cafe right here on ET Now. I'm Ashesh Advaryu, and first up, let's take a look at how US markets ended on Friday. And US markets ended on a positive note. We had S&P 500 which rose. In fact, it closed at record highs on Friday. Apple shares rose on Friday, so that was also some positive news that we got from the American markets. Dow Jones rose nearly 2% in trade. We had S&P 500 soaring nearly 0.8%, and we had Nasdaq. That one also ended nearly 1% higher in Friday's trade. Nasdaq, in fact, as I mentioned, hit an all-time high, and that was also another positive. But we had a whole host of stock-specific movers from US markets. Remember, as I mentioned, Apple was soaring in trade. Pinterest, that one reported very weak set of numbers, so that stock tumbled in trade on Friday. But we have the all-important inflation data that will be out this week from the United States, so all eyes will be on macro data from US. Apart from that, we also have some important commentary that came in from US President Donald Trump, where he warned US courts on Friday against striking down his tariff policy. So that was some important commentary that came in with respect to the tariff war that has been undergoing. And we also had Ethereum within the cryptocurrency market, which soared nearly 1% to a 7-month high. But let's also put the spotlight on the commodity market then, and crude oil prices have been declining for the last several trading sessions. We have Brent crude, which declined last week. It is sitting with a cut of nearly 1% today. It is trading near the $66 per ounce mark. In fact, it is below 66 at the moment, and it ended with a downtick of nearly 4.5% last week. Remember, there was this all-important meeting between global leaders on Friday, and a meeting between Trump and Putin is also expected to happen the coming Friday. So all eyes will be on that, and because of a possibility of a peace deal that could happen, we have seen that kind of fall in the oil market. Supply is likely to increase in the global market, and that will continue to weigh heavy, and that is precisely the reason Brent crude has started off with a cut of nearly 1% in today's trade as well, to fall below that $66 per barrel mark. As far as gold is concerned, that too has been declining. Remember, last week, of course, it ended with an uptick of nearly 1%, but today morning, spot gold is down 0.4% as we speak, to trade near that $3,380 per ounce mark. Traders, of course, await some kind of clarification on Trump tariffs on gold. Remember, last week there were some reports which suggested that Trump could also impose tariffs on gold imports, and because of which we saw a lot of volatility in the global gold market. Today, of course, it is subdued, sitting with a cut of nearly 0.4%, and we need some more clarity on how US could impose tariffs on gold as well. But back home, the mood was far gloomier. Sensex fell for the 6th straight week last week to slip below that 80,000 mark, while the Nifty 50 shed nearly 0.9%, and remember, this was the longest losing streak since April 2020, dragged down by Adani Enterprises and Apollo Hospitals. BSE listed companies, in fact, eroded market cap worth 4 lakh crore. Ankita Saxena, my colleague, is now joining us with the market wrap of last week. Ankita?
Well, yes, Nifty declined for the 6th consecutive week. In fact, this was the longest weekly loss in Nifty in the last 5 years since April 2020. In fact, we did not even manage to, touch those 24,400 levels at the close. We actually shut shop at 24,366 at the Nifty. So as far as Nifty Bank is also concerned, the Nifty Bank closed around the 55,000 mark this week, declining for the 2nd consecutive week, mainly dragged by ICICI Bank and Kotak Bank. Sensex also declined for the 6th consecutive week, closing below the 80,000 mark. In fact, we saw a market cap erosion of 4 lakh crore rupees this week. Now, as far as the broader markets are concerned, the mid-cap and the small-cap, they also declined for the 3rd consecutive week. Mid-cap shut shop 1.2% down for the week, and small-caps 1.5% down for the week. Now, sectorally, the Nifty PSU banking was a top sectoral gainer this week that snapped its 2-week losing streak, mainly led by Indian Bank and Bank of Maharashtra. Nifty Auto also snapped its 2-week losing streak with Hero MotoCorp and TVS Motors that were leading the gains. Nifty Pharma was the top sectoral loser that declined for the 2nd consecutive week. Biocon and Divi's were leading the losses. FMCG was down 2% for the week, mainly dragged by Britannia Industries and Imami. Now, Nifty Realty also a big laggard decline for third consecutive week, mainly dragged by Sobha and DLF. Nifty Energy too declined for the three straight consecutive weeks. Now, as far as the top Nifty gainers are concerned for the week, Hero MotoCorp did very well. Titan on the back of strong set of results and good commentary coming in was also one of the top Nifty gainers. Tata Steel, Tech Mahindra, Trent and Eicher Motors in that pecking order were the top Nifty gainers. On the losing side, we had Adani Enterprises, Apollo Hospitals, Nestle, Infosys, Sun Pharma and Tata Motors that were the top laggards for the Nifty for the week.
All right, thanks Ankita for getting us that entire roundup from last week's action. But to discuss the global macro setup further, we are now joined by Peter Maguire, CEO of AustraliaTrading.com. Hi Peter, very good morning. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let's talk about the global markets first. And, US markets is near that record high level. So do you believe now the focus is somewhat going to shift to the commodity market because that is where all the action is going to be? Brent has been seeing steep losses. So what's your expectation going forward in this particular week?
Well, good morning and thanks for inviting me on the show. Yes, it's been a dynamic. When we look back over the start of this month, what we've experienced in the early part of August has been just extraordinary. We understand what happened as far as the gold rally the other day with COMEX and then President Trump quelling those concerns as far as 100-ounce and kilo bars. So there's the first part. Oil has continued its downdraft off very, very heavily, and that downdraft I think is going to continue. WTI focus is early 60s, if not into the 50s, sometime over the next couple of weeks. And unless you see something happen geopolitically or, of course, with weather outages. But the theme is going to be softer energy prices, and that's going to be great for consumers, both globally, and that'll help, naturally, inflation.
That's as far as global markets set up and the focus on a commodity market is concerned. But let's now put the spotlight on oil in particular. There are hopes of a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, and this is likely to create a supply glut in the global oil market. And this is the reason oil prices have now fallen near that $65–66 per barrel mark. How do you read this, and what does this mean for global supply equation then? And how much could oil prices fall by then in the global market?
Well, everyone's keeping a very close focus on, naturally, those discussions between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska. So there's the first part. If there is to be an end of this whole conflict story, then that's going to be wonderful, first off, for humanity. And secondly, the next part is, we believe, naturally, cheaper energy prices with the glut rolling into the end of Q3 and early Q4. Cheaper prices, probably well into the 50s as far as energy. And that's what everyone's been tipping, because we've got excess capacity, excess production. There's no shortfalls there. OPEC Plus want to see more production entering the market. The big, massive producers, the likes of Saudi, certainly America's producing big numbers, and of course what's going to happen from Russia. So all of a sudden, I think we're going to see again that downdraft continue, and going to be wonderful for consumers and naturally drive inflation certainly lower, which should help equity markets as well.
That's right. Peter, now I was talking specifically about India. You already mentioned about the peace deal that might take place later in the week. But talking specifically about India, Trump has threatened 50% tariffs on India because India continues to buy oil from Russia. What kind of an impact do you think this is going to have, on the oil market when that August 21st deadline comes in?
Well, we've got to get through to the August 21. I think this is going to be the relationship that Prime Minister Modi and President Trump have, I think, is a very solid relationship. So that's the first. I want to stipulate that. The second one is, yes, there are timeline deadlines, but I feel as though that in the art of President Trump's normal negotiating style, I think there's going to be extensions given. And if Russia was going to say, and they get those talks over the line, and you get Ukraine playing the same game as Russia, and we see an end to this conflict, then that's going to ease the purchasing of Russian crude as far as President Trump's concerned, I would think. So I'm certainly concerned, but I'm not overly concerned because I think the timeline perspective will play to India's favour coming into September.
So that's as far as Indian markets is concerned, but also wanted your thoughts on the precious metal market then, especially gold and silver. What's your outlook over there with global peace deal being signed this week and tariff tantrum largely being behind us? Do you expect safe haven demand to come down gradually then?
Well, not necessarily. I think central bank buying is going to continue, and we've seen that very aggressively across the likes of Poland, China, and numerous other countries stepping up to the mark and purchasing. Then you've got to look at retail investors and the man and woman on the street. Their consumption is growing. The next part, of course, is what do we see as far as Fed policy with easing of rates? Are we going to see a rate cut in September and then successive cuts? They're saying another 60 basis points could be strapped in in Q4. So weaker dollar, that's going to, I think, and you see inflation hopefully come down with cheaper energy prices. I think we're going to see more upside potential for gold and silver leading into Q4. So, don't wipe it out yet. It's been an enormous rally so far in the first 7 months, and I believe that will continue leading into the rest of Q4.
Okay, like you said, there's been an enormous rally in the first 7 months when it comes to gold. But where do you see the prices, closing in by the end of this year, that is 2025?
I still believe that 3,800 is a target I'm keeping a very close eye on. We hit 3,540 the other day on COMEX. I know that was an anomaly that presented itself to the market, but it's still an intraday high. I think you've got to look at 3,800, and that will be, I think, achieved sometime October, leading into that Q4, October, November sort of timeline, and I wouldn't be surprised to take higher numbers out than that. First off, I want to get to 3,800. I think it's achievable, and then we'll look at something more concrete moving forward. But the overall momentum is, I think it's very, very solid and strong at the moment, and it's very, very bullish. So I think that's the normal course of events. People are long, people are bullish, and there's a big theme out there globally to be a part of that bull market.
Very bullish, that's the word coming in as far as precious metals is concerned. Peter, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining us this Monday morning and helping us understand what the outlook is for the commodity market going forward. But let's get going then, and let's put the spotlight on all the stocks that will be in focus today. And first up, remember, a whole host of companies reported their numbers. So TVS Supply Chain, that one reported weak set of numbers. It was below what the street was working with. Revenue has risen by about 2% on a year-on-year basis. Margins, they have contracted. In fact, margins have come in at 6.7% versus 7.2% that the company had reported same time last year. But the management commentary with respect to outlook continues to remain very positive. In fact, the management says that they are confident of delivering progressive improvement in margin profile and bottom line performance through the course of FY26 and beyond. So strong commentary that has come in from management of TVS Supply Chain. All the numbers were lower than what the street was working with. Let's also put the spotlight on a couple of pharma companies on the back of US FDA action. We have Zydus Life Sciences, where the company has received final US FDA approval for tablets which are used for constipation. So this is on the back of a US FDA approval that Zydus Life Sciences will be in focus. JSW Energy, meanwhile, positive news flow coming in over here, where they've commissioned 80 megawatt of unit of the total 240 megawatt. This is a power project in Himachal Pradesh, and the installed capacity for the company has now surpassed 13 gigawatt mark. So this is again a positive news. JSW Energy will be in focus on the back of that. Let's also put the spotlight on Brigade Enterprises. And over here, it has launched a 20-acre plot in East Bengaluru, and the revenue potential of this particular project stands at over 225 crores. Lastly, Dr. Reddy's, again on the back of US FDA approval, where they have received US FDA's inspection report for its Telangana API facility, and the inspection has closed with voluntary action indicated classification. So perhaps we could see some kind of impact on Dr. Reddy's on the back of this news. So yes, a whole host of stocks, Kanishka, in focus on the back of earnings and several other news pieces.
Absolutely. Lots of stocks to track today. In fact, let's also get Sharad. Sharad, which are the stocks on your list? Several earnings-related counters, textiles, and also defense stocks that you're keeping on your radar. What's the news flow here?
As expected, Tata Motors came out with its numbers and it was largely mixed. And of course, the impact coming in is because of the tariff issues which are pertaining especially for the JLR segment. Largely revenue, EBITDA in line, margin slight miss, PAT was above estimates and JLR guidance has remained unchanged. But the margins, they have actually performed better than expectations. Double-digit margin is there for the CV segment, but the demand outlook, that is challenging. That's what the management had stated. ICICI Bank, they have hiked the average minimum balance of savings account in metro and urban areas to 50,000 rupees from 10,000. It will be effective from 1st August, but salary accounts and existing accounts won't be impacted. Analysts say CASA impact would be there in the short term, but on the other hand, there might be migration coming to PSU banks and other private banks as well. Defense stocks positive. The annual defense production for FY25 has gone up by 18% on a year-on-year basis, coming in at 1,50,000 crore plus. This might give a positive boost to the defensive stocks in the day's trade. Textile stocks, Ministry of Textile has decided to reopen the PLI portal for fresh applications till August 31, a kind of a boost coming in because of uncertainty in the tariff for the textile players. And lastly, Manappuram Finance, mixed Q1 numbers coming in, strong growth in the loan portfolio in the gold segment, but the asset quality is worsening in most of the segments, and that is an alarming trigger. Also, management had stated that the gold loan yields are expected to moderate to 18% over the next 4 to 6 quarters as the rate cut transmission also takes place.
Okay, so Manappuram Finance and a whole host of other stocks that will be in focus back on the back of earnings. Sharad, thanks so much for joining us with all those details. But it's time for yet another busy week for the market and global economies around the world. From India CPI data to US-China trade talks, what will be in focus? Snehi Shah is joining us with that list. Snehi?
Well, yes, lots of cues to watch out for back home as well as globally for the week to come. So let's get right to it. And first up, let's talk about cues to watch from India. On the 11th, that's Monday, you have monthly AMFI and SIP data. Tuesday, you have CPI. Wednesday, trade data. Thursday, you have the WPI numbers coming in. And to give a little bit of a relief to all of these cues that we'll be tracking, Friday, which is 15th August, is going to be a holiday on account of Independence Day. Globally, from the US, you have CPI, PPI, initial jobless claims, industrial production and retail sales numbers next week. From the UK, you have unemployment data, industrial production as well as GDP numbers. Eurozone as well, 14th August is when you have the Eurozone GDP and industrial production numbers coming out. And from China, 9th of August, you have PPI and CPI. And 15th August, you have retail sales and their industrial production numbers as well. From Japan, similar metrics, CIP, GDP and PPI are what we're going to be tracking over the course of next week. In terms of the earnings action, we're at the end of the earnings season, about a week or so left for the quarter 1 FY26 earnings season to wrap up. And on the 12th of August, which is Tuesday, you have the remaining 3 companies that will be coming out with their numbers from the Nifty pack. That's Hindalco, Apollo Hospitals and ONGC. And Tuesday will mark the end of the Nifty 50 earnings. But other than that, over the course of the week, you have some marquee names like BEML, Zydus Life Sciences, you have IRCTC, Muthoot Finance, Ashok Leyland, lots of companies from the broader end of the market too that will be coming out with its earnings. So watch out for all of these stocks as well. In terms of corporate action and board meetings, 11th August, Lodha Developers, erstwhile Macrotech Developers will be in focus on the back of fundraising plans. You'll also have Nazara Technologies board that's going to be mulling a stock split and a bonus issue on the 12th, along with RCF that's going to be mulling a fundraising on the same date. So these are also going to be a bunch of stocks to watch out for. Other than this, in terms of AGMs, you have Divi's Labs, Britannia, Ipca Labs, Berger Paints, Godrej Industries, Metropolis, AB Capital, Ashok Leyland, Amara Raja and a whole host of other companies that will be holding their AGMs over the course of next week. So these comments made in the AGMs are going to be very important to track as well. The lock-in period will be opening for Jana Small Finance Bank when 20% equity will be coming out of lock-in on the 14th of August. But other than this, on the macro perspective, you'll have a lot of global commentary trickling in from Fed officials. You also have the OPEC monthly oil report coming in on the 12th. So this is also going to be very important to watch out for, along with the IEA energy oil market report on the 13th of August. So keep a close eye on all of these cues for the week to come. All right, thank you, Snehi, for taking us through all the cues that we need to watch out for in this week. But moving on, the 4th season of the prestigious Times Now Amazing Indians Awards will be held in the national capital on August 11th. Dignitaries, change makers and luminaries from across the country will come together to honor these exceptional individuals. Let's take a look.
They are not celebrities, but their actions have created ripple effects of change. Amazing Indians is an awards platform that recognizes extraordinary citizens making an impact at the grassroots. After reviewing hundreds of nominations, a distinguished jury has handpicked 12 winners for this year's honors. This year, our chief guest is Mansukh Lakshman Bhai Mandavia, Minister of Labour and Employment and Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports.
It's a great way to put the limelight on people who have very humble beginnings, who are really driven only by passion, and the way they have been able to impact the society, community, entire ecosystem in some of the stories is truly inspirational.
These are the people who don't need an award. Awards get honored by bringing these people forward.
The awards span across 12 powerful categories.
How people are trying to focus on others and improve lives. So to me, I think Amazing Indians is not only about amazing Indians. It is amazing Indians doing amazing things for the world.
I think amazing Indians are truly amazing. Some of the people that we reviewed, what they've achieved, what they're trying to do, their background, where they come from, and the impact they have made, they are really amazing. So for me, it was a humbling experience, it was eye-opening, and I think we need to make more and more such heroes.
Unlike conventional award shows, Amazing Indians shines a spotlight on real-life heroes who've remained in the shadows.
Unsung heroes are actually doing it for us without our knowledge, and it's whatever we appreciate is less, in my opinion, for all these people.
Mark your calendars for 11th August. Catch the live updates and exclusive coverage on Times Network channels. Stay tuned, be inspired, don't miss it.
And on that note, we need to slip into a very short break, but more news and updates will continue on the other side. In fact, it's up 0.3% as we speak. ASX 200, that's one for you. We have Korean market Kospi that has also started absolutely flat in today's trade. Nifty implied open is also suggesting a quiet start for the Indian markets, down just about 10 odd points near that 24,440 mark after a downtick that we had seen in Friday's trading session. So Kanishka, we are not getting any concrete signs from Asian markets today.
Absolutely. We're rather penciling in a very quiet start for the Indian markets as well. But let's also take a look at how the F&O setup is looking like today. And Sharad is here to take us through just that.
Interesting FI number coming in as FI had turned buyers after 14 straight sessions of selling. Now the F&O setup for today largely remains stable on the mixed cues of global and the India VIX and the PCI numbers. They are still in a range bound but in a comfortable manner. The Nifty index futures, the activity is short build up as what we saw in the last trading session Friday. The highest open interest strike price for the Nifty weekly expiry for put, it comes at 24,000, 23,500 levels, and for call it is at 25,000 levels. For Nifty Bank also short build up is happening. Change in open interest has gone up almost 11%. And do remember, look at Nifty Bank because adverse news flow has come in for ICICI Bank and it has a higher index weightage in Nifty Bank as well. So there might be initial knee-jerk reaction in the Nifty Bank today. The highest open interest strike price, Nifty monthly expiry put is coming in at 57,000 and same number goes for the call option as well. Interestingly, the FI long trade position after the previous trade has actually come down. So still FIs are short of more than 92%. That means the market is looking at a short recovery rally, but when it will happen, time will say. DI longs, that has actually significantly gone up from 68%. The longs have gone up to almost 72.5%. Now also today Amphi data would be coming out with its numbers, so it will be very interesting to look at the SIP numbers. F&O band, two names are there, PNB Housing Finance and RBL Bank.
So that's how the FNO setup is looking like this Monday morning. But on that note, we need to slip into a very short break. More news and updates will continue on the other side.
And of course, to the overall sector, it is looking at rolling out the export promotion mission soon. Remember, this was announced in budget this year. Other than that, the government of India is also looking at boosting domestic consumption. Now, export diversification to other geographies, which is not restricted and limited to any one or two particular geographies, has been India's strategy and policy. So measures and, of course, initiatives are being taken as far as diversification of India's export basket is concerned. And in light of that, sources are telling us that talks with the European Union are progressing well. Remember, both the leaders from both the countries were looking at essentially closing an FTA by the end of this year. So talks on that front are progressing well. Other than that, there are FTA talks that are currently going on with Gulf Cooperation Council countries or GCC countries. Additionally, what we're given to understand is that there could be separate FTAs also that could be done with each of these Gulf Cooperation Council countries. And of course, a bilateral investment treaty separately is under negotiation with Saudi Arabia as far as India-Oman FTA is concerned, given the fact that negotiations were going on. Well, a legal vetting on that is going on at the moment. And of course, the announcement could happen in less than 3 months from now. Other than that, in terms of diversification of India's export baskets and other geographies as far as those are concerned, well, India is looking at exploring markets in West Asia and Europe, like I stated, to cushion tariff impact. And of course, all of these measures, all of these FTAs and talks and negotiations that are currently going on are essentially a part of that strategy.
Sumita, thanks so much for joining us with all those details. But let's shift our focus to some other domestic stories then. And ICICI Bank has hiked average monthly minimum balance for new savings accounts in metro cities and urban areas to 50,000 rupees from 10,000 rupees currently. Changes are also being made to balances in semi-urban and rural branches. Existing customers, however, will remain unaffected. Anurag Joshi, my colleague, is now joining us with more details on this. Anurag?
ICICI Bank has increased the average minimum balance for saving accounts at the lender in metro and urban areas to 50,000 rupees from 10,000 earlier. The higher minimum average monthly balance is effective from August 1, and the minimum saving bank account balance in semi-urban branches has been raised to 25,000 from 5,000 before. The minimum saving bank account balance in rural branches, that's up to 10,000 rupees from 5,000 earlier. ICICI Bank has said that the complementary cash deposit and withdrawal value limit of up to 1 lakh rupees per month, and thereafter there is a 3.5 rupee charge per 1,000 rupee transaction, or 150 rupees, whichever is higher. The third party cash deposit limit has been capped at 25,000 rupees per transactions for all saving banks account. ICICI Bank is saying that this new rule is not going to affect the existing customers of the lender.
Okay. All right, so let's focus on some more national news stories. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurated the yellow line of Bengaluru's Nama Metro, which marks a major expansion of the city's mass transit system. The 19-kilometer corridor links residential neighborhoods, industrial hubs and tech parks in the southern belt. Prime Minister Modi also flagged off 3 Vande Bharat Express trains in Bengaluru. He later laid the foundation stone for Nama Metro Phase 3 at the IIT Auditorium. Next up, after marking a humble beginning in the Indian space program with a tiny rocket supplied by the United States, ISRO would launch a 6,500 kg communication satellite, Block 2 Blue Bluebird, built by the US in the next couple of months. The Block 2 Bluebird satellite features large communication arrays and has been designed to achieve data transmission speeds of up to 12 Mbps, enabling voice, data and video communication capabilities. Now remember, the satellite will provide direct-to-smartphone broadband connectivity, eliminating the need for specialized terminals.
And shifting focus to some global stories then, US President Donald Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin will meet in Alaska on August 15 to negotiate a Ukraine ceasefire. Trump also hinted Kyiv may cede territory, while the Kremlin called the talks challenging but aimed at lasting peace. Listen to what he had to say.
European leaders want to see peace. President Putin, I believe, wants to see peace, and Zelensky wants to see peace. Now, President Zelensky has to get all of his everything he needs, because he's going to have to get ready to sign something, and I think he is working hard to get that done. Well, you're looking at territory that's been fought over for 3.5 years with, a lot of Russians have died, a lot of Ukrainians have died. So we're looking at that, but we're actually looking to get some back and some swapping. It's complicated. It's actually nothing easy.
All right, so that's the latest we're hearing from US President Donald Trump. But let's also go across to my colleague Srinjoy, who's bringing us more details on this.
US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are meeting in Alaska on the 15th of August. And it's probably going to be the most consequential meeting of the year, because the issue to be discussed is the war in Ukraine. Now, let's not forget that the war has lasted over 3 years. And the casualties, if you see civilian and military, Russian and Ukraine, dead and injured, is over 1 million. That's a lot of people and a lot of casualties. The damage to both countries has also been very significant. And the world has suffered because of it. It's meant higher fuel prices, higher food prices, higher fertilizer prices. And the countries that have suffered because of that are countries like India, like countries of the South, which actually import a lot of food grain and, more importantly, fuel. So the war has to end, and hopefully there will be a solution arrived at in Alaska. Of course, the Ukrainian side has to have a say here, and we have to see what Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, has to say about it, because the Ukrainians have fought and fought valiantly for 3 years. Of course, they have been supported very, very well by the Americans, by Europe as well. But the war is reached a position when perhaps at least a ceasefire is possible. And let's hope there is some solution in Alaska, and President Trump and President Putin arrive at something which the President of Ukraine also accepts.
Srinja, thanks so much for joining us with all those details. But shifting focus to some other stories then, the US and China face an August 12 deadline to extend their tariff pause as Trump amps up threats of higher duties on the back of China's purchase of Russian oil. Meanwhile, China defended its Russian oil buys, stating that it is legitimate and lawful for China to conduct normal economic, trade and energy cooperation with all countries around the world, including China. And meanwhile, chip giant Nvidia is under the scanner as Chinese state media has accused that its H20 artificial intelligence chips are a national security risk for the country. Remember, earlier in the day, an account affiliated with Chinese state broadcaster CCTV came out with an article that said that the Nvidia H20 chips are not technologically advanced or environment friendly. Although Nvidia responded, stating that cybersecurity is critically important to the company and Nvidia does not have backdoors in their chips that could give anyone a remote way to access or control them.
Meanwhile, Nvidia and AMD have agreed to give the US government 15% of revenue from sales to China. Now remember, Trump administration had halted sales of H20 chips to China in April, but Nvidia last month announced that the US has said that it would allow the company to resume sales and that it hoped to start delivery soon. In other news, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israel has no choice but to finish the job and complete the defeat of Hamas. Netanyahu asserted that their goal is not to occupy Gaza but to free Gaza. Speaking to foreign media, he said that he has directed Israel's military to bring in more foreign journalists, which would be a striking development as they haven't been allowed into Gaza beyond military embeds during 22 months of the war.
On that note, we need to slip to a very short break, but more news and updates will continue on the other side.
When the stakes are high and the answers are elusive, there's one voice unafraid to challenge the status quo.
At 8 p.m., I am not here to sugarcoat the truth. I am here to ask the hard questions. Because when others play it safe, I go straight to the heart of the matter. It's not about left or right. It's about what's right for India. It's about holding the powerful accountable.
Repricing on the asset side gives us confidence that we will be able to maintain the NII, improve the NII, and also protect the NIM.
You spoke about NIM. Now that has also declined 33 basis points. But still, if I talk about domestic NIM, so that's over 3%. What will be your guidance for the rest of the year?
We are still sticking to our guidance that through the year, annualized basis, we should be at 3%.
So 3% run rate might be maintained throughout the year. Apart from that, tariffs is something which is keeping everyone busy. I want to understand from you on one part, as you explained earlier, of course, direct impact of whole banking system will be limited. But indirectly, in terms of sentiments, in terms of clients behaving, in terms of corporates availing loan, how much of the impact do you see if the current tariff is sustained? And also, do you see this is a resolvable problem?
I definitely think that is a resolvable problem and also hope fervently that it is resolved as soon as possible. I think more than the direct impact of tariffs, it is uncertainty surrounding the tariff narrative which is creating, some kind of dislocation in investment decisions. I'm not saying that the investment decisions are purely impacted by this, but some of the people are wait and watch mode, and they want to see how the tariff activity plays out.
Right. One last question regarding your loan growth overall. You have maintained this time 11% growth, but do you think you will improve it to 12 or 13% later this year?
Yeah, I think on an annualized basis, we are sticking to our guidance of 12%, and we have done very well in many other segments like home loan. We've had a robust growth of 15%, SME almost 20% growth rate. So we are seeing a good sanctions and good sourcing of applications in these two segments. And hopefully in the festival season, both the unsecured personal loans as well as auto loans will pick up, and that gives us confidence. As I mentioned, a double-digit growth in corporate. On an annualized basis, we should be able to achieve our guidance rate of 12%.
All right, so that was the SBI chairman in an exclusive conversation with ET Now. But let's also take a look at what brokerages are penciling in after SBI's strong Q1 performance. Varun is now joining us with all the details. Varun, it looks like a very bullish commentary coming in from brokerages.
Definitely. So brokerages house are actually liking the overall results of SBI because majority of the brokerage house have actually kept their overall rating as it was in the previous quarter. But yes, some of the brokerage houses have actually increased the price target for this year, and some have actually rolled forwarded the price target for FY27. If you look, it is Jefferies, it is ICICI Securities, HSBC. These are some of the brokerage houses who have actually raised their price target. Though the raise in price target is not much, it is only 10 to 20 rupees. But yes, they are liking the overall results. Now, brokerage houses say that the overall results of SBI was good, and actually the overall profitability for the bank was actually led by treasury gains. The revenue growth was good, and also the asset quality remained stable for the bank. The overall decline in the net interest margin was around 10 basis points, which was actually lower than its peers, and also management has guided that going forward the overall net interest margin for the banks would actually increase in FY26. So that is also one of the good signs for SBI. Also, they say that the management has guided for a 12 to 13% loan growth, so which is actually good from SBI management. So that's the reason some of the brokerage houses like Motilal Oswal, they have actually increased their overall earnings estimate by 3.5% for FY26 and 27, and they are actually factoring in the basically robust treasury gains and also the overall controlled OPEX by the bank. So it's been a thumbs up from majority of the broking houses on SBI.
SBI, that counter will be in focus today. Varun, thanks so much for joining us with all those details. But let's also tell you what's lined up for you on ET Now over the course of the next 3 hours. We will be joined by Nilesh Shah of Kotak AMC at 9:30 a.m. today to understand what the market setup is looking like, what the outlook is, and what are the fundamental ideas with an investment point of view. We'll be interacting with Nilesh Shah. We will also understand the dynamics for the cement sector with Girija Shankar Ray of Yes Securities, what Q1 looked like and what the outlook is for the sector going forward. We also have an exclusive interaction lined up with former Shipping Secretary Gopal Krishna at 10 a.m. today. We'll discuss earnings outlook and what the growth roadmap looks like with Cummins India MD Shweta Arya will be joining us at 10:30 a.m. today. Meanwhile, TVS Supply Chain, that one has reported its numbers. How were they? We will discuss with the management. Ravi Vishwanathan, MD of TVS Supply Chain, and the CFO, global CFO of the company will also join us at 10:40 a.m. today. And that's all the time we have on this edition of the show, but don't go anywhere. The market coming up next.